It was nothing like what he had expected. Before watching, don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss another touching story. And write in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is right now. Ethan considered himself a man who noticed details. Working as a robotics engineer, he made his living studying patterns and finding smart solutions. For almost 2 weeks, disorder had been growing in his neat and organized house. It all started with a small thing. The kitchen cabinet door was left slightly ajar. Then the pantry door stood wide open, and boxes of crackers were scattered all over the floor. One morning, he came downstairs and saw that the refrigerator door was wide open. A carton of milk had fallen and spilled across the shelf. "Leo!" Ethan's voice echoed through the house louder and angrier than he intended. His 3-year-old son appeared in the doorway, holding a dinosaur toy and looking up with big eyes. "I didn't do it, Daddy," Leo said in a quiet but confident voice. "Then who did?" Ethan gestured at the entire mess in a tired and exhausted tone. Leo pointed at Duke Wellington, their large German shepherd, who was sitting in the corner looking guilty. His ears were flattened, his eyes looked away, and his tail was tucked. "Duke did it." Ethan touched his forehead in frustration. "Leo, dogs can't open refrigerators. We've already talked about being honest about what you do. But Duke, enough." The word came out harsher than Ethan wanted. He noticed his son's lip trembling and felt bad, but he was too tired and irritated to listen to a 3-year-old's made-up stories. 2 days later, Ethan found cereal scattered all over the living room floor. The television was on, showing an animal program. 3 days after that, he discovered his expensive special cookies that he had hidden on the very top shelf. The package was torn open, and the cookies were destroyed and scattered across the floor. Every time, Leo would say, "Duke did it." Every time, Duke looked guilty. And every time, Ethan couldn't believe a dog was capable of such things. That evening, after Leo had fallen asleep, Ethan set up a small camera in the kitchen. He convinced himself he was doing it to figure out what was happening, not to prove his son was lying. The next day after lunch, Ethan sat down at the table with a cup of coffee. He opened the camera footage on his laptop, expecting to see exactly what he had suspected for several weeks. His finger hovered over the play button. He fast-forwarded through the quiet morning hours. Nothing. An empty kitchen with sunlight streaming through the windows. He sped it up faster, watching the time numbers fly by. Still nothing. Then, at 13:27 on the screen, a shadow flashed by. Ethan slowed the playback to normal speed. His hand moved toward the mouse, ready to pause and capture the evidence he needed. Duke entered the frame. The dog stopped in the middle of the kitchen and looked around, but something about the way he moved made Ethan lean closer to the screen. It wasn't the usual lazy walk of a family pet. Duke's head turned slowly. He carefully checked every direction, as if making sure no one was watching. Ethan's coffee sat forgotten as he stared intently at the screen. Duke confidently walked straight to the pantry door, without hesitation, without sniffing around. Straight to the door, as if he'd done it 100 times before. "No way," Ethan whispered. He watched as Duke rose up on his hind legs. His front paws reached upward, one pressing against the door for balance. Duke's nose pushed the handle. Once. Twice. The handle didn't budge. Ethan felt a strange mix of relief and confusion. See, dogs can't. Duke shifted and tried again. This time his nose hit the handle at a different angle. The handle clicked. The door began to open. Ethan's jaw dropped. His heart pounded in his chest. "This is impossible," he said out loud in the empty room. But the video didn't lie. Duke dropped back onto all 4 paws and pushed his nose into the pantry. Ethan saw the dog's tail wagging as it inspected the lower shelves. A moment later, Duke came back out with a package of cookies neatly gripped in his teeth. The very same cookies Ethan had blamed Leo for just 3 days earlier. Ethan's hands went cold. His stomach dropped. Leo had been telling the truth. For 2 whole weeks his son had been telling the truth, and Ethan hadn't believed him once. Every time Leo said, "Duke did it," Ethan had cut him off, demanded he take responsibility, and looked at his son with disappointment and irritation. Ethan paused the video and leaned back in his chair. In his mind flashed all the conversations, All the accusations, all the moments when he saw Leo's lip trembling as the boy insisted on his innocence. Guilt crashed over him like a heavy weight on his chest. But if Duke was really doing all this, then what else had Leo been telling the truth about? The cereal on the floor, the open refrigerator, everything. Ethan's hand trembled slightly as he moved the mouse to continue watching. He had to know everything. Duke trotted to his favorite spot by the back door and began tearing open the cookie package with his teeth. Ethan watched, still trying to process what he was seeing. Then, at the 13:1 minute mark on the screen, there was another movement, small footsteps. Leo appeared in the frame, wearing his dinosaur pajamas. Ethan leaned forward again and turned up the volume. Leo stopped when he saw Duke with the cookies. For a split second, the boy just stood there. Then his entire posture changed. His shoulders straightened. His little hands went to his hips. Even through the grainy recording, Ethan could see his son's face become serious and determined. Leo marched decisively across the kitchen toward Duke. The big dog immediately lowered his head. His ears flattened against his skull. Ethan's breath caught. Duke Wellington. Leo's voice came from the laptop speakers in a high, but strict tone. It was an exact miniature copy of the intonation Ethan used when Leo got in trouble. We talked about this yesterday. These are Daddy's important cookies, and you know you're not allowed to take them. Ethan's vision blurred. Tears burned his eyes. His 3-year-old son was making the mess. He was trying to clean it up. He was trying to teach the dog right from wrong, using the same words, the same tone, and the same disappointed expression that Ethan used with him. "You're being very bad." Leo continued in the video, wagging a tiny finger at the huge German shepherd. Duke tucked his tail. "Mommy will be very upset. You're in trouble, mister. No TV today." Ethan covered his face with his hands. His shoulders shook. For 2 weeks, he had thought his son was a liar. For 2 weeks, he had used harsh words and disappointed looks. For 2 weeks, he hadn't believed the one person who had been telling him the truth all along. And Leo, sweet, innocent Leo, had been carrying this burden alone, trying to raise a dog that seemed smarter and more mischievous than either of them could have imagined, try and protect Daddy's special cookies, keep the house in order, and do everything right, while being blamed for everything. Ethan wiped his eyes and finished watching the recording. He saw Leo try to explain to Duke why stealing was wrong. He heard his son's voice crack with frustration when Duke didn't seem to understand. And finally, he watched as Leo gave up, collected the torn packaging, and tried to hide the evidence before Dad came downstairs. When the video ended, Ethan sat in silence for a long time. Then he stood up and went downstairs, where Leo was playing with toy trucks in the living room. He had a lot of apologizing to do. Over the next 3 days, Ethan couldn't stop watching the footage. He set up cameras in every room and observed what was happening like it was a strange TV show. Every day while Ethan worked upstairs, Duke would steal things. And every time, Leo would appear right after as a little boss and give the dog lectures that were sometimes touching and serious, and sometimes very funny. "I'm very concerned about what you're doing," Leo would say to Duke after the dog turned on the television. "This is already the 4th time this week." "We made a deal about food," he said on another day, waving his little hands. "I'm not angry, I'm just disappointed." All these phrases were exactly the ones Ethan had said to Leo many times, and now they were being directed at the dog, who actually seemed to feel ashamed. Duke would lower his head, tuck his tail, and sometimes cover his nose with his paw, as if hiding his face. Ethan found himself laughing at the sight, then immediately feeling bad. He had accused Leo so quickly and hadn't listened to what his son was saying. On Thursday afternoon, while Ethan was on a video call, he heard a loud crash and Leo's voice from downstairs. "Duke." "No, I said no." Ethan jumped out of his office, rushed down the stairs, and burst into the kitchen. The place was a complete mess. Duke had tried to pull an entire pizza box off the counter. The box had fallen, and pieces of pizza were scattered across the floor. Duke had already grabbed one slice and was quickly eating it when Ethan entered. Leo stood in the middle of it all with his hands on his hips. Tears were streaming down his face. "Dad." Leo turned around. "I told him he can't have unhealthy food. Mommy said we're eating healthy this week. And Duke knows pizza hurts his tummy, but he doesn't listen to me. The little boy's voice cracked under the weight of the responsibility he was carrying. Duke stopped chewing, with cheese hanging from his mouth, and looked back and forth between Ethan and Leo like a teenager who had been caught doing something wrong. Ethan just stood there and started laughing, a deep, quiet laugh that shook his whole body and brought tears to his eyes. "Dad, it's not funny," Leo complained, but his lips were already starting to stretch into a smile. Ethan dropped to his knees and hugged his son. "You're right, buddy. I'm sorry. You were trying to tell me the truth all this time, weren't you?" Leo nodded, burying his face in his father's shoulder. "I just wanted Duke to be good." "I know," Ethan whispered, "and you were amazing." That evening, Ethan posted the video online. By morning, millions of people around the world were watching the little boy trying to raise a German Shepherd, while the dog actually looked guilty. But for Ethan, the views and comments didn't matter. What mattered was a little boy sleeping upstairs who had been right all along, and the lesson he had learned about trust, belief, and listening to the people who truly matter. Did you like this story? If your 3-year-old child kept telling you that the dog was opening doors and stealing food, would you have believed him from the very beginning? Yes or no? Write in the comments below. If you enjoyed the story, subscribe to the channel and like the video. Thank you so much for watching. See you in the next video. Have a great day.